Good evening, everyone. Having been informed that we have a quorum, I am calling the 2019 annual meeting of the Gospel Hall Association, I can't even remember the corporation name. Assembly of Christians Gospel Hall Association to order. Bob, can you open us in prayer, please? For those of you joining us for the first time this evening, welcome. The reason we meet here annually is as required under the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We are also incorporated as a nonprofit corporation, so we meet yearly to discuss corporate matters, the grounds, the building, and things of that nature, as opposed to spiritual matters, which we discuss on our regular meetings on Sunday mornings. Everyone should have received copies of the minutes from the 2018 meeting. If there is anyone who has not received a copy, please raise your hand and my assistants will get that to you. Okay, I am hoping everyone has had ample time to review the minutes from last year's meeting. If there are any questions, we will field them now. Okay, no questions. So, first motion of the evening, I need a motion to accept the minutes from the 2018 annual meeting. Carlotta, do I have a second? Daniel? All in favor? All opposed? And that motion carries. Bob Mushin will now come up and deliver the treasurer's report. If you did not receive a copy of the treasurer's report, please raise your hand and one will be given to you.
Thanks, Jay. The great news is we are moving from the 19th century into something a little closer to modern day. We have a QuickBooks initiative that will get us to where we can do lots of things that we haven't been able to do before. So tonight I'm taking a bit of a partial step in that direction. This is still drawn from that ancient spreadsheet of Microsoft called Excel, but it won't always be that way. So if we, and my assistant is still working the crowd. If we could go to the next page, that would be great. Now there's a test here. What's wrong with this display? Anybody see anything wrong? This attempts to emulate what you have on the front side of what you've been given, except that it's in color to kind of distinguish things. Okay, let's not prolong the agony. We're not carrying it forward to 2018. That should be 19. My secretarial help, who is standing before you now, failed to pick up on that, and he will be punished as soon as possible. So, the other thing that I've begun, and with the concurrence of the real brains of the outfit, which is Susie and, of course, to some extent, our as yet unnamed QuickBooks expert who helps us. Her name is Cindy, but the two of them really know what's going on. This is my effort to try to convince myself that I do. So what we're saying here is on the top line, in 2017, the end of 2017, we had a total of nearly $296,000. Of that, 91,000 was carried over designated funds. The primary constituent of that carryover funds is the $80,000 that was given for the building project, which did not occur, and therefore that is still set aside in reserve. So that 295,000 is what we started 2018 with. The income that we received during the year, 166,000 in general giving and nearly 50,000 in designated giving. Go over to the left-hand side and you see that what we budgeted for was we expected to get 196,000. So we were $30,000 short of our budget of income. But again, as I've perhaps explained in the past, the income budget is essentially a reflection of the expense budget. What I do is develop the red stuff first and then say how much money do we need, and that then becomes the income. So we were $30,000 short. If you kind of jump down and look at the same position on expenses, you see that 210,000 versus 251,000, we spent 40,000 less than we budgeted. So at the end of the year, we were indeed about $5,000–6,000 more in the corpus of funds that we had in hand. The other thing that I've done is to combine the categories of ministry and missions and consider that one entity, and combine the categories of operations and school books and count that as another. We used to talk about education, operations, missions, and ministry. Now we're just talking about two things. Which are the things we do, in essence, to go out, and what are the things we do to work inside? So last year, our budget for those things was $131,000 for ministry and missions and about $60,000 in operations. We also budgeted $60,000 in capital investment, and if you jump over one line, you see we only spent $9,000. So our capital investment in the building last year only used $9,000. Therefore, at the end of the year, we carry forward nearly $303,000, and of that, 200 is general. It's available for any of the expenses we have, and 102.5 is designated. It's set aside. We continue to track that as that giving comes in. The major portion of what is in that 102,000 outside of the 80,000 for the building project, most of the remainder is short-term mission contributions that were given for both our most recent were Philippines and, help me with the destination, yes, Thailand. So those fundraising initiatives which produced income that was designated to them that was not used are retained, and the next year's edition of that will have those funds in order to be able to kickstart that. That's also true, by the way, of OCC. The figure isn't nearly as large, but it's another example of an entity which we do keep. Things that are given as designated giving through the year, such as gifts to people at his mansion or to missionaries and that sort of thing in Cameroon, that gets dispensed on a monthly basis, so we don't carry that forward anywhere. But the things that we carry forward are primarily short-term missions that will be repeatable and the building project. Any questions on 2018? It's not your last chance, but I thought we'd move on then to 19. Sir?
Just talking about capital improvement budget,
Mm-hmm.
that tends to fluctuate significantly from year to year. Projects, correct? $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 1 year, and $5,000
Yes, that's true. And I'm sure that you all will have a comment on that as to what you anticipate for the coming year, but we'll talk a bit about that when we look at the 2019 budget. But that has proven to be a difficult thing for us to project. what are we going to spend in this case in this year? And the other problem is we're a third the way through. So we're talking about a budget that's been in effect for 3 months. And so we're asking you to vote on it tonight, but if you don't vote to approve it, we're in a world of trouble. No, we're not in a world of trouble. But the point is, we have our annual meeting in April, having begun our fiscal year in January. So the budget that you will see in just a moment, is the budget we're operating on. You will vote to agree that it's the right budget. You're also free to say, we don't like that budget. We think you ought to change it. That's also very possible. We're quite a flexible organization, getting more flexible all the time. Okay, questions on 2018? Sure.
Do we follow the calendar year for fiscal year because it's easier?
Well, I don't know. I was not here, despite my appearance, I was not here at the origin of the Assembly of Christians Gospel Hall Association. Pastor Donaldson would need to be consulted with respect to that, but I think the original fiscal year's choice, which was November, is that the beginning? It was an odd, it was a month during the year. It came up, it had this, no kidding, Sherlock. Wow, sit down. It was a month chosen for a reason that escapes me. I thought that it would be good if we selected either something that matches something else, like the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which I think is July, or just the Julian calendar. So we decided on the latter, and we said the fiscal year starts in January just like the regular year starts. We then moved the annual meeting, I know I'm thinking of November, the annual meeting used to be in November, and the fiscal year started in July. So what we did is move it over this far, but it still suffers from the same issue, and that is we start the fiscal year back here, and we tell you about it 3 months later. How does it make you feel? Okay. I really don't feel I should be the one defending all these decisions. But I guess I opened it up for myself. All right, let's move on to 2019, since that's what we're here for. This next series of 3 slides attempts to capture, first of all, that ministry and missions section in detail, then the operations and capital, and then finally income versus total expenses, just to give you a sense how they look. So these are the ministry and missions area, and I've made up a couple of names. Actually, I borrowed the top one from Dave. He calls what we have done at the end of the service now the body life portion of our service, and this body life category attempts to capture that. It is both the social and the Sunshine Fund. It's the kinds of things we do for other people. So that line includes those. The next line, conferences and camp, that's either supporting someone's attendance at a conference, paying for their camp fee, that sort of thing that we used to call campership, I think. After that, they are pretty much the same: deacons, family Bible hour, food share, etc. And then, of course, now the missions are in this category. So not surprisingly for us, the major portion of this entire ministry and missions category is the over $100,000 that we devote to missions. And by missions, we mean things that take the word from here and go somewhere else. And the somewhere else can be a long way away, or it can be close aboard. It's a whole variety of those sorts of things. Just some notes. We rarely, let me just say that I've shown you the budget in yellow for this year, and next to it are the budget for 18 and 17 and the actuals for 18 and 17. So you can get back to this idea of how do we do against the number. And some of them tend to kind of march along pretty carefully. Others are truly estimates, and we get there when we get there and see what happens. But you notice that every time our general missions underspend our budget, and that's typically because of this anomaly that the missions committee likewise gets together in the first part of the year and decides what the support for that year is going to be. but it doesn't get implemented until a portion of the way into the year. Hence, we spend less every year on missions than we budget because we don't start it right at the outset. So we're going to try to fix that as well. What other thing do I need to point out here? Youth. Youth is one of those where, you know, what happened? I mean, here's $3,400 and next year's $600. The youth ministers came and said, we think we have the plans to invest $1,500 in youth. So I said, okay, that's how I write 1,500, and I put it in there at 1,800 just to kind of, you know, bulk it up a little bit. But that's where that's going. The other one is special missions. That one is quite frankly dependent on that designated giving. If a whole bunch of people support the Philippine mission to an extent that we hadn't anticipated, then the Philippine mission might not need support from special missions the way we budget for it. So you can see this figure also tends to be up and down with respect to its conformance with the budget. Food share. I finally gave up. I kept trying to log in $1,200 because I thought Faith or somebody might need $1,200, and we didn't take it out of here. So we're not taking that. Any support, for example, that would go to Faith would be out of the mission side. So food share is this year budgeted for 0. The other reality is, to whatever extent we do need to support food ministries at other places, we get all sorts of special giving to make that happen. So there are still people who give us funds that are earmarked for food share. So I've made that budget 0. And that's subject to your agreement, or, hey, you forgot such and such. So that's that area. Are there questions on that? That can answer? Okay. Let's go to the next one then. This is the operations side. Here too, we had a line that was called education, and it had Sunday school and training sessions and study materials for women's study for Tuesday night, you know, whatever the need might be to purchase those sorts of things. I've gathered that all under books and curricula and made that line that you see there. Maintenance and particularly utilities remains, you know, that's probably the same way it is at your house if it's like ours. The utility budget just kind of keeps escaping, and you think you have it, but you really don't, because somebody applies a new tax, which is, by the way, municipalities are not taxing authorities, so I'm not speaking from the standpoint of somebody who taxes other people. I'm speaking as a suffering person, just as the rest of you. But the tax that people apply to utilities for purported purposes like, this is for enhancing renewable energy, or this is for the purposes of this or that, frankly, is what drives the prices of utilities up, but really doesn't go into doing any of the things they said. It goes into the general fund of the, in our case, the state of Rhode Island, in your case, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and just as a nice little. So we're supporting that. We continue to give people money for our electricity that doesn't make our electricity any better. Just a commercial. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's it. So that's where that is, and then we get to this line here. And Chairman Nielsen and I spent some time with, okay, what's this number? And I put 27,000, and to the extent possible, beat him into submission. He's bigger than I am, so I thought he'll lose in the end. But I think it's about that. And if we come back with a project, they'll tell you more about that. But that could change. Notice when we budgeted 60,000 last year, we spent 9. But the year before we budgeted 57 and we spent 77. So, and then of course we've got the back there that's it remains an unknown as to what we're going to do. I mean, not what we're going to do, but what it's going to cost. Is that right? Or do we think that the insurance company is going to? No, that's right, more of that later, very good. All right, then let's move to the last, and this just takes all of that expense line, sums it up here, and it's from this then, the 214,240 that we need for this year, says me, and reflect that back up and say, so if that's the number, what's it gonna come, how's it gonna get to us? And it's gonna get to us partly by designated giving and partly by general offering. And if you look at that general offering of 165, it's not too far off the actual for 18, or for that matter, not too much less than 17. So I think it is a closer approximation to what we get. Now, if we decide that we're gonna take some initiative that requires funding, we've already practiced that, and it brought in $80,000. So it's not that we can't stand here and say, this is where we're headed with this, and we'd like you to add to your giving when that happens. So. This line here just keeps you in mind of what are we carrying forward? What do we earmark, or what did you earmark? And we kept that earmark, and it's going to not be spent on something else. So kind of the basic bottom line is we have about $300,000 in our corpus of funds, and of that $300,000, about a third of it is designated. The other two-thirds, the other $200,000, is what we would use to buffer any difference in any undergiving versus overspending. That is my report. Yes, sir. When you say breakdown, you mean what are the what kinds of, what are the numbers with respect? Sure. Yeah. Let me see if I can grab it real quick. In round numbers, 80,000 for the building project, and 7,000 and 8,000 for the two short-term missions, respectively. I'm sorry that I don't have the other side of the spreadsheet. I told you we're limited here. We really don't know a lot about Excel, even though we talk a good story. Hang on a second. Let me say, for the sake of getting off the stage, it's 7,000 and 8,000 for the two short-term missions. The other 1,000 and 2,200 are the OCC, and there's one other, and I don't remember this. And that really accumulates most of that 102,000. I will report back and give you the number. That's right, yes. Yeah, we have some, I'll call it seed money to begin the process, and then there is the $12,000 that we say as a group that we want to have. Actually, it's the missions committee that kind of nominates that idea, that we want to have in place for missions that we didn't expect, things that we didn't start out the year by saying we're going to support somebody 12 times like this. And by the way, if you're not aware, we not only support the Cameroonian missionaries with support to them personally or directly, we also support the education of their children. In other words, we pay toward, on twice a year, 2 semesters, each of the school-age children of our Cameroonian missionaries are supported as well. So it's an important part of what they get in the way of support. Any other questions? Yeah. Man, I hope I anticipated the possibility that I would be, I'll need to return to my seat. Get that answer right now. Mr. Moderator, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Your routine gets better and better every year. Okay, there being no other questions about the treasurer's report, I need a motion to accept. Athena, second, please. Priscilla, all in favor? All opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Next is the trustees' report delivered by the chair of the Board of Trustees, Dan Nielsen.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Bob. And that is the report. No, first up, I'd like to say thank you to Scott, Cindy, Alan, Mary, and Greg. It's been a busy year, a pleasure serving with all of you. Unfortunately, we will be losing Greg this year after a 3-year term and Alan after a 1-year term. So if you can hear me on the live stream, thank you both for your service. And we look forward to whomever we have joining us this year. May not be as glorious as other positions, but we are integral in the workings of this chapel, and we really do take a lot of joy in serving the Lord this way. So thank you to anyone who might be considering serving or already serving. So, the project. Before I start, are there any questions about how it happened? And if not, I will just zoom through to where we are now and what the delays have been and how we are moving forward. Does anyone not know a pipe broke because of frost? Okay, I think we're all set on that. The problem was when we built the Breaking of Bread room, the pipe went over the door, outside of the building envelope, outside of the insulation, and then went back underneath the floor where it should have been in the first place. Why was it done that way? We don't know. Why did it happen to burst now? We don't know, but it did. Spread along the walls, down the walls, along the ceiling in the junior high youth group, and basically ruined everything that it touched. Even though it was cold water, clean water, and we got there relatively quickly, there was still a lot more damage than we anticipated. And part of the delays have been to, A, follow the building code and meet all of the safety requirements therein, and that requires testing for asbestos every time you demo, testing for lead every time you demo, doing moisture testing in all of the mastic beneath the floors, the carpets, the wood, and Bob Morelli is keeping these people to a T, and he expects the standard to be met. And sometimes they've been trying to cut corners, and Bob will call them back and say, I want another moisture reading here. And unfortunately, those moisture readings have led to a creep. Initially, we thought we could just replace the carpet. Unfortunately, the beautiful hardwoods underneath the carpet were also damaged. Those are gone. All the insulation in the wall in the junior high youth group, gone. All the mastic on the new laminate flooring in the main area of the Sunday school room got wet. It was not a hydrophobic mastic, so it absorbed water. The only way to dry it out thoroughly was to pull the floor up and do it the right way. And so that is part of why it has taken so long. There's also been delays with the town code, the town building inspector, and communication in general between ServPro and the insurance have been kind of spotty. The insurance has their requirements. ServPro at times met them, at others did not. And sometimes Bob Morelli called them out on it and said, you guys need to do this and do this properly. You will not submit anything to the insurance until I see that it has been done according to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So I can't thank Bob enough for his expertise. This is what he does for a living. He is a contract manager, a building project manager, and so he's right at home doing this. And he knows everything that you need to know about maintaining a building. And so for someone like myself, that's a gold mine, because I would just buy whatever the insurance company told me and say, I hope you're right. And in the meantime, who's serving our interests? Well, we are acting as our own advocates here, and Bob is integral into that. Currently, as far as I've last heard, the insurance company has received everything they need to start issuing payment, which means we can finally move forward with rebuilding and reconstruction. We are going to be replacing the hardwood floors, not with hardwood, but with an underlayment, and returning the carpet, not the old carpet, we're going to be recarpeting for the purpose of having the acoustic environment we enjoy in the Breaking Bread room. It's very quiet, it's intimate. We want that, however you want to describe it. We don't want the resonance of the foyer in that room. And so we are gonna go back to carpet, despite the pleas of many to say, let's finish the hardwoods and make it look pretty. And we have had other projects on hold while we were waiting for this project to be done. So the recarpeting of the stairs will then be next. We are going to reinstall a very similar product, if not the same product, in terms of the laminate flooring, wrapping it all the way into the youth group room. And some of this cost we are going to have to eat. Unfortunately, and honestly, you know, we were already recarpeting some of these areas. The carpet was at the end of its life. And so, for instance, for the breaking the bread room, the insurance company said, you know, we aren't going to pay for the carpet, but I believe they are paying for the reinstallation costs. So we will come out of pocket to purchase the product, but the installation will be covered. Other things, for instance, junior high youth group used to be carpet. Well, we were planning on wrapping laminate into that room anyway, so we are going to basically get reimbursed for what it would have cost to install carpet and pay the difference to get the floor we are going to put in anyway. So there are going to be some expenditures involved with that. And the $27,000 is an estimate. We have, I'm sure, incurred some cost with this project, but Bob is working very, very hard to make sure the insurance company has all the right documentation, and so that we can get reimbursed as fully as we should, and that final number remains to be seen. Unfortunately, during this time, we have also had a lot of other issues that just happen to happen at the same time. I call a plumber in to look at the pipe, and we go downstairs to figure out where to turn the water off, and I look at the water heater and it's leaking. Right down the pipes into what are the heaters for the gym, and so little things like this were just unpredictable maintenance issues. So we've had an electrician fix some wiring issues. We have a new hot water heater. We have 5 of the 7 circulating pumps in the boiler room replaced. We had to have a new water bladder, things I don't understand, replaced. But when you get contractors in to fix a problem, all of a sudden they identify that's going to fail, that's failing. And so we have incurred, I'm going to guess $20,000 to $25,000 already in non-big project costs, just in regular maintenance, because we've had eyes here, people here 24/7, and just kind of really being vigilant with our building. Questions about the project? I've heard a lot of people ask questions out in foyer on Sunday morning. Here's a good chance to, if you have a good question, ask it. I'll do my best to answer it. So by the time the estimates are all submitted from the contractors to the insurance company, we're looking at rebuilding starting at the end of the month. I'm going to give it 4 to 6 weeks based on what I've seen so far with the whole process. Rebuilding is always faster than demo. The demo has all the safety issues, the moisture readings, the leg testing. That's all out of the way. So I think the rebuild should be much faster than what we've had so far. I'm hoping by June, but that's a guess. It's really a guess. So. Okay, so moving on. Instead of boring you with the little things we've done over the last year, I'd like to talk about a couple projects that we are looking forward to, that we had already kind of started and then have put them on hold because of the larger water damage project. Going back to the larger building project, there were 5 kind of topics of 5 driving factors, if you will, that led to the development of this project. And we have not forgotten those 5 issues. And I think a couple of them, and I can't quote them all off the top of my head, was how do we use the foyer space? What is the foyer meant to be? How can we use the areas we have in this chapel in a more efficient way? We have closets that have been empty for years. We have nooks and crannies that are just not being used well. And people here every Sunday morning watch how new people come in and how they track through the building, and who they talk to, where do they look. And so we're also considering how do we make this a welcoming foyer for people coming into the chapel. And we have not forgotten about those 5 things. And part of the discussion I wanted to have tonight very briefly was the $80,000 that we have in designated funds, we have not spent because we have not been able to meet the intention or the criteria that had been set forth for that money. And so we are, in some sense, asking permission to move ahead with using some of these funds in a way that fulfills the same essence of what we were trying to do with the larger building project, but in maybe smaller pieces, smaller chunks. If you are a person that gave and gave substantially and you want your money to be designated for something specifically in that nature, please let Bob or I know. If you gave and you know, for instance, if Betsy gave and we ended up having permission to use her money to rebuild some of the sound booth, you know, I'll put a placard up there, the Betsy Brown sound booth, you know. And if you want to know where your money is going, that would fulfill a lot of what our desires as trustees is to, you guys gave this money, we want to honor you and use it and allocate it appropriately with what you had intended it to be for. If you did give and you don't care where your money goes, then you don't need to do anything, because we are going to make sure we spend that money fulfilling the plans originally set forth anyway. Part of those plans do include upgrading some of our fatiguing and frankly broken sound equipment. You know, this speaker is here because that one's been fried 3 times. And so we had an electrician come in here and do some work. Our plan is also to reorient the sanctuary back into its intended orientation, which is facing that way, extend the stage, build a closet in the corner there to hold things like props. You know, when we do kids' plays, this area here is just not a very well-used area. I don't know, it's just too small, right? So part of the expansion of the stage is going to be to make it more of a multi-purpose area. Extra equipment, valuable stuff can get locked away. Again, all the props we have for plays can be put away. And we're also going to plan on expanding the sound booth, which is very, very small. Katrina's saying thank you. And so that is one way we're trying to kind of bring this room up technologically to snuff and also make it more user-friendly for the music team, the speakers, for egress, as well as just, I mean, we moved this orientation, I think 4 or 5 years ago, and just left it there. So now we'd like to go back to what it was intended to be. Questions about any sanctuary work? All right, inquisitive bunch. Other issues, we talked about doing solar. You saw the creep of our utilities from 14 to 16, now to 18,000. I don't know how much of that is electricity, but probably a good portion. Solar would cost us about $40,000 to $45,000 up front. It's a 7-year, what's the term when you make your money back? Yeah, so after 7 years, we would be without an electric bill, with the possibility of then expanding our use of electricity, for instance, air conditioning. And so we talked about that about 10 to 12 months ago, got some quotes, and just didn't feel that the time was right, the money wasn't there, and we didn't move on that. So that's a project that's still kind of lingering. I discussed briefly the reorientation of this room, and discussed briefly the how do we better use the foyer space. And so there are some ideas floating around. I love ideas. I'm not a visionary. I'm not creative. I think for the most part, trustees are just good at doing things, but we don't generally have a good sense of how can we do this so that in 20 years, this space is still lovely and well used. And so if you have ideas, we would really appreciate it. And I mean more than just on Sunday morning saying, hey, you know, this would be really nice. If you have something that you're passionate about, for instance, the library, if you have an idea of how to use that space better, what books are being used, what books are not being used, we are all ears when it comes to this stuff. And so for the people in the room who have the knowledge of this building, who have a desire to see things change, improve, come to us. Let us know. We love ideas. We love talking about possibilities. Sometimes we're a little closed-minded, and we need people to knock on our box and say, hey, think out of the box. You're stuck in this mold. We have that email, trustees@BethanyGospelChapel.com. If you're not comfortable with the face-to-face and you want to shoot an email, that comes directly to the chairperson, which is myself now, and then I send that to whomever should receive it. So if there's a leaky faucet, shoot me an email. I'll shoot it to whomever, and we can get that fixed pretty quickly. I think that is all I had. Is there, anyone have any questions about any other issues, any concerns? No? Okay. Well, then that is all for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Do we have a motion to accept the trustees' report? Zach, second. Patty, all in favor? All opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Next up, we have an update from the eldership. So first up will be Dave Armstrong, followed by Jim Klink.
Hello, family. It's good to be with you tonight on this annual event where we can talk about things that are going on here at the chapel. And this is not a business part of what's going on, and I'm glad for that because, on a Sunday morning we have kind of a limited amount of time. Not that we have all the time tonight, but we tend to try to keep things fairly concise on a Sunday morning. And some of these kinds of things we don't necessarily communicate. So yeah, part of the elders' communications to you tonight will be some from me and some from Jim. And we wanted to first let you know about this exciting thing that we're doing and really developing the leadership here. We've talked about this for quite a few different years of adding to the deacons. And so we've taken a major step in developing our leadership team here at Bethany. In the past, we had a very active group of deacons, but recently our deacon board was reduced down to just Vinny Johnson. Is Vinny here? No, so Vinny was our last deacon. So, and he's still a deacon, but he was the only one, is what I'm saying. So after a period of extensive Bible study and prayer, the elders invited 5, what we consider to be young men, who were thinking that we really think that they exemplify the biblical characteristics of deacons, and they've really proven themselves already through various types of service here at the chapel. So these 5 individuals are Matt Duquette, Josh Klink, where's Josh? Ron Mustelli, Dan Nielsen, and Don Rothmich. Is Don here? Don's here, all right. So all 5 guys here, great. So these guys, we've been working with for a few months now already, and we're trying to help them explore the role of a deacon, and then how do we do deaconing here at Bethany Gospel Chapel. I'm really excited about the godly characteristics that I've seen in these guys. They are thoughtful, involved, concerned, proactive, giving, and a loving group of guys that we are blessed really to have as a congregation, to have them in this role. So we are still working with them. They will be working toward being a little bit more independent. Paul and I have been spending time with them, and we're just excited about what's happening with the leadership, especially in this area of deacons. Something else I want to communicate, the missions team, we've heard some missions dollars. So on the missions team, we have various people. Paul and I from the eldership are there. We have some deacons on there, and then some others. And Anne, who has been the chair of the missions committee, has stepped down, and so now we need to fill her position. But we want to thank her. I guess she's not here today, right? But much thanks to Anne for years of leading the missions team. So we're still continuing, as the dollars showed, 13-ish sort of mission families or groups, plus 4 different mission groups themselves. And even part of those dollars are what Bob had mentioned about the education for missionary kids. And that continues to happen, and we've actually added, I think we've added another person, but then we went through the process to add the Holtz family, but then we found out that all of their support was met already, so we're kind of unsure of what's happening, so we need to, they were not able to raise the support. So we still have some questions about the full support of them and bringing them on. And maybe I need to communicate that we are behind them. We're just not sure exactly what they're doing at this point. And then something else we want to really make sure we do is communicate what's going on with our missions and these different ministries. And so that's why we asked Heather to do this monthly missions moment on a Sunday morning to help communicate what's happening with our missions. And so I'm glad that she was able to kick that off this last Sunday. So with the missions, it tends to be out there. When we talk about the missions committee, we're talking about those that have really gone to the ends of the world. And I think we all know that there's a bit of a gap sometimes between what's here immediately, what's in our community. And so we do some things with Gates of Hope and Food Share. And there's a nursing home ministry that Paul is very involved in. And so there's some things that are happening, but I have seen recently a real interest in trying to develop things that are more locally based. How do we support the need that's really immediately here? And so there have been a few things. I just wanted to comment on some of this. When I think of what am I doing to reach my neighbors, I think we're doing a really good job of the missions and meeting people out there. And I think we do a really good job for people who walk in the door. This is a very friendly place, and so I think that we are able to connect with them. But what about the people at work? What about your neighbors? What about the people that you see in the grocery store? To me, there's kind of a gap there of how do we really, in this sort of a culture where we have our own homes and we hop in our cars and we drive to where we're going, we're not in a city where we're seeing people a lot. And so I've been putting a lot of prayer and time into understanding evangelism and discipleship. I've been to a few different conferences thinking about how is this even done? What does it look like in this culture? I'm currently associated with a Discovery Bible group where we take the simplicity of what the Bible says and have somebody open it and they read and they talk about what the Bible's saying. And so my current focus right now is to experience personally, how do I do this? Not selfishly, and this is just me. But I don't want to try to implement something here without doing it myself. I want to live the part of communicating Christ to those around me and then invite people to join. And so I had to ask some questions. Where am I interfacing with non-Christians? Almost all the stuff I do is here at the chapel. Where are the non-Christians? They're at my work. What am I doing to communicate to those around me about the Jesus that's in me? So I would like to encourage you to bathe this in prayer. We need to be praying about this, praying about those people that you're meeting, that you're already in touch with, to be praying about how you can communicate about the Jesus that's in you. And so hopefully we'll be able to work on communicating that great news of Jesus to immediately those around us. Greg Brown has actually started this in a sense with this living missionally. He started a global ministry group where there's a monthly prayer time after the services, and the focus is on missions and on those things that we're supporting here at Bethany. But there's also a monthly meeting that's literally in the community. in a restaurant around here that we meet, we talk about things right there in the community with other people around about how are we sharing Christ with those around us. So I'd encourage you to get connected with this global ministry group and learn how to share Christ with those immediately around you. With that, I will turn it over to Jim, and thank you for listening, and I'd love to talk to each one of you about how you are sharing Christ with those around you.
Surprising, I have slides. Huh? Have you noticed an absence of a common buzzword in this evening? Has not been stated yet. Have you noticed that? Absence of? It's always hard to notice an absence of. We haven't used the word vision, have we? Interesting. Businesses, churches always have their vision statement. So one would ask, what's the Bethany vision statement? Well, in a sense, if we shift our conversation from this evening and we continue not to use the word vision, what is it that we as elders are committed to, passionate about, and what are we as a community committed to and passionate about? And that's what we've been really talking about this evening, right? The budget is, okay, budget's always kind of boring and dry, but when you look at the percentages, we're giving 45% or so to missions. What are we committed to around here? Missions, right? They were just talking about missions, locally, globally. We're committed to expanding our leadership, right? Don't kid yourselves for a moment. We all know that the elders are getting older. Of course, the rest of us are getting older. Some of us may not notice. But the deacons will become the elders of tomorrow at some point in time. My perspective, sooner the better. I'm ready to retire sooner than one might expect. But we have a commitment to growing our leadership. And we have a commitment to the missions. We have a commitment to service. We have a commitment to evangelism. And it's starting and seed places and different people here, and as we're going to continue that personal commitment and have it grow. And as you might expect, I have a real commitment to this pulpit ministry, to our speaking and our teaching time and our preaching time. And over the last couple years, we've had someone come in to help the speakers to think a bit better on how do we present a message more clearly with a big idea. I've asked for feedback on sermons, and I'm always happy to get feedback on sermons and our speakers. If you would like to give it to me or others, that's very helpful. So I just want to let you know where we're going for our upcoming year. We constantly are trying to plan ahead and not very good at it, and then we do kind of plan ahead and then change our mind when we get there. So, subject to change. We're now finishing 2 Timothy. People have come back and often said, we'd like a series. We'd like to have a little bit more topical series. To be honest, the challenge with the topical series is our preachers, is us. If you have one guy up here for a month, it's easy enough to do a topic. It's very difficult for a set of 2 or 3 guys to address a topic. So that's why we tend to do these book studies, but we're trying to address them from a big idea perspective. So the good fight is kind of what we've pulled out for Timothy. In the summertime, where Timothy's going to go through about June. In the summertime, we're going to continue the idea of fighting the good fight of the faith we're going to look at Hebrews chapter 12, chapter 11, living by faith. The title may change, but we're going to look more at what does it mean for us to live by faith. We like to, recent past, we've been trying to go between the letters of the New Testament to some historical stuff as well. So that's why we've been back to the Psalms or doing some stuff from Genesis. So we're trying to shift between the two. If you haven't noticed, we're doing some historical and then more of the pastoral or the letters of the New Testament. So even though we're in Hebrews, it's really looking at the narrative of the life of men and women of faith. So we're going to go back to narrative for the summer. And then come the fall, the kind of end point out there, it might be to do book of Colossians, being renewed in the image of God. What does that look like? So that's kind of where we're going with our preaching series. I'm just becoming more and more passionate about preaching all the time. I'm not very good at it, but I'm trying to get better. I've really been loving the book of 2 Timothy. I hope you guys have been getting into it as well. So that's on the speaking stuff. Any questions on that? Any comments there? Anything you'd like to? I didn't expect much comment, but feel free to let me know personally. Okay, what else did I say I was going to say, Katrina? So our commitments are teaching the word. Other things we've already said. We're committed to marriage and family, whether that's family with camperships, whether that's marriage. We just went away for a marriage retreat with the Friesens, who were one of the couples that we support, and we financially, part of that money was financially supporting, helping couples go to the marriage retreat. And then we have another marriage Saturday coming up in May. So I want to encourage you to attend that. That's another commitment that we have as a leadership and as a church to build up your marriages. We want them to grow. We want your families to be growing. And then talking about missions briefly. I think I have another slide on this. Am I being broadcast live here somehow? And is that being recorded for YouTube? Okay. I'll be careful what I say. Do you have another slide? Did I not put it up there, Katrina? Oh, there we go. Muslim Outreach 2020. So we're already planning ahead for our next trip in August. And I want us to think broadly about missions. It's more than writing a check out to the chapel that gives 45% of what you send every week goes to some missionary. But it's becoming involved in it ourselves. And last time we took a group of 16 people, plus one child, on our mission trip. And we're having another one, August 2020. And I really want us to think differently about it. As we mentioned before, we're really there to facilitate church planting among Muslims. Not a lot of churches, not a lot of Christians there. How are we going to do that? We're going to do that by nurturing missionaries. They prefer the term workers because you get kicked out of a Muslim country if you call yourself a missionary. And they're generally with NGOs, non-government offices to do their work. How are we going to do that? By nurturing their children. How do we do that? By facilitating friendships and making memories for them in a safe environment so they have that opportunity they don't have. Their children are missionaries, but they don't go to Sunday school because there is no church. That's why mom and dad are there, right? So it's a great opportunity for us not to go do kids ministry, but to help plant churches in Muslim countries. That's what we're about. So I'm continuing to be excited about that, so you can think about that for 2020. So those are some of my thoughts and on our other commitments that we have as elders. And then just a big thank you at the end. I know it's kind of a business meeting, but for me, I look out and I'm thankful for you guys. What do I mean by that? I put a list together, not to try to any names down in general, but you're going to see that we are a involved, committed group of people. For a church of, I don't know what we have, 150 people or so. Sunday morning, you have a whole audio-visual team. You have greeters. You have someone that does the offering, someone that collects the offering, someone that counts the offering, someone that takes care of depositing that money, right? Let alone the people that are up singing and the people preaching and the people running Sunday school and someone getting coffee and donuts out and someone cleaning it up. That's just one day. Then Bible studies, Sunday night, Wednesday ladies study, Wednesday men's study, Wednesday evening study. Not only just sharing of the word together, but it's becoming a community together, praying for one another, encouraging one another, holding one another accountable. You guys are all doing that. That's what makes this a body of what Christ would have us to be. Nursing home ministry, mom to mom. It's not just one mom talking to a bunch of other moms. It's a whole support staff that makes that possible. Sunday school teachers, And the trustees, Dan, you did a great job. I don't know how you tracked all that stuff that you're taking care of. Thank you. I know Mr. Morelli's on the daily basis, but you do have a full-time job, I think, and more hours than I work, and somehow I'm sure you're texting between patients, so thank you. Pardon? Missions team, point of contact for all our missionaries, OCC, choir, chapel secretaries, special events for outreaches. We're gonna have an Easter egg hunt. People make those things happen. You guys make that stuff happen. And then all the behind the scenes people, praying, writing letters, sending emails, encouraging, sending flowers. Someone sets up breaking a bread room, or that one, or this one, and gets that set up. You guys are doing a great job. Really thankful. And then for every one of you doing service, there's a servant behind you taking care of your home while you're out doing that. And without those servants behind us, we couldn't do anything. Without me behind my wife, she's not going to be able to do what she does. So, great big thank you on my behalf and the elders' behalf to all of you. Any comments? Probably not. Feel free.
All right, thank you, Dave. Thank you, Jim. Do we have a motion to accept the elders' update? Athena from the foyer. A second, please. Dan, all in favor? All opposed? Okay. Next up, at last year's meeting, there was a proposal to amend the bylaws to change the proxy requirement for the annual meeting in order to make it less arduous for us to be able to gavel the meeting to order and conduct our business. The proposal was voted down, and in its place, a committee was designated to explore other ways that we could look at making the quorum requirement easier for us to be able to conduct business. We're very encouraged by the number of people that came out tonight, and looking forward to updating the membership roll. But in the meanwhile, that committee has come up with the following proposal to amend the bylaws to formalize our use of proxy votes for members who cannot attend the meeting but wish to send someone in their stead to count the vote. So Katrina, can you please put up the first slide? So Article 5, Section 3 describes the voting privileges of active members of the corporation. The last line in white, 2/3 of the members shall constitute a quorum for the transaction of business. The proposal from the committee is to maintain that requirement, but add on the text in red, for the purpose of determining a quorum, a proxy shall also count towards the attendance of voting members. So that is the proposed addition to Section 3. If you'll advance the next slide, please, Katrina. We are also proposing adding a Section 4, which formally encodes into the bylaws how a proxy is designated. The text being the proxy may be given to another member of the corporation. The proxy shall be counted as a second vote by the designated member at any meeting of the corporation. A proxy shall be designated by the completion of a proxy statement, which must be returned to the clerk of the corporation at the commencement of a meeting of the corporation. Proxy statements will be available upon the announcement of the annual meeting or any special meeting of the corporation and shall only be valid for the meeting designated on the statement. No member shall be able to carry more than one proxy. That's a lot of words. It might sound a little confusing. Basically, what the gist of it is, we will be formalizing the procedure by which Ron, who was not here earlier, and Patty was carrying his proxy for him, and so we were counting her as two attendees. We are going to, Katrina, can you go to the next slide, please? We are going to make available a piece of paper when we announce the annual meeting, or if any special meetings of the corporation are held. We will make available statement sheets that will look like this, that will have this wording on them. That will designate you as a member of the corporation to say, I give X my proxy and shall be counted towards the quorum and shall carry my vote at that next meeting. We'll also publish we'll post the list of members of the corporation. So next year, in March, in the first week of March, when we announce the annual meeting, we will also post the updated list of members of the corporation. And so I would encourage all of you and anyone else who's attending on a regular Sunday who may not be here and is listening out on the live stream to check that list. If your name is on the list and you know you're not going to be in attendance, you can take the form, speak with another member who's going to be here, and you can designate that person to carry your proxy. We are hoping that this makes it easier for us to be able to bring the meetings to order. This seems to be the best consensus we can come up with, other than trying again to reduce the actual quorum requirement as we tried last year. So are there any questions regarding proxy? Yes, Zach.
Any specific reason why only one member can hold one property?
That is amongst parliamentarians, it is generally considered best practice to only allow one person to carry one proxy, so that one person doesn't come in and is able to, in a non-voice vote, say we're making we're voting for, Mike, what was the example you used last year? The purchasing the property. When we need to count the votes, you can't come in and say, I am casting 17 votes in favor of acquiring this property, or I'm casting 35 votes opposed to, amending the budget in such a way. It's just a matter of keeping things streamlined. And it also encourages members of the corporation to be more active. We don't want to use this as a crutch for, more people to not attend the meeting and just send their proxies instead. Any other questions? Matthew? Will a digital copy be acceptable? We're going to need it? Yeah. I mean, electronic signature this is not the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts play a little fast and loose with how we internally conduct our business. So this is more a matter of how we want to regulate ourselves in terms of how business is conducted. So yes, it could just be as simple as you come in with a text message from your wife that says, Zach is carrying my proxy. But we're trying to use this system to help keep us accountable throughout the process. But certainly, if we can enact safeguards such as digital signatures, I don't think a digital copy of the proxy statement is unreasonable. Don? It would just be posted in the foyer. It would be just a copy of the roll, just like we would use on the night of the meeting to check everybody in. We could also publish it by email through the membership list. I don't think we'd want to send that out I don't think we necessarily have to send that out on the one anothering, but we could make copies of that available by email as well for anybody who's requesting. Mary? Any proxy vote, it is again, this is an area of sort of fuzziness. The implication is that the person you are giving your proxy to is going to vote in a manner in which you are expected to vote as well. So the proxy would not be coming in and saying, I am voting yay for this measure and I am casting the proxy vote in the negative. Give me just a moment. Oh, are they on the website? Oh, I have them in my... Okay. Article 4, Section 2 of the bylaws. Persons who have been in attendance at Bethany Gospel Chapel for a period of time deemed reasonable by the Board of Trustees, not less than a period of 6 months, may be nominated for membership by any member of the Board of Trustees. Membership in the corporation shall be through the official action of the Board of Trustees, who shall in turn refer all nominations to the elders of the assembly for confirmation. No person shall be considered a member unless action of both the Board of Trustees and the elders has been stated in writing. The clerk of the corporation shall keep the record of official membership. No person shall be a member of the corporation unless he declares his full and complete faith and belief in the statement of faith set forth in Article 3 of these bylaws. Obviously, this is another self-governance matter that we have generally played fast and loose with in order to convene the meeting on an annual basis. So next section, section 3. Section 5 is revision of the membership list. Prior to the annual meeting, the Board of Trustees shall review the official membership list. Any person who for reasons of residence or other reason have not been in attendance at regular or annual meetings for a period of 2 years shall be removed from the membership list. Such persons may be reinstated at any time in accordance with Article 4, Section 2. You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay. With that, I am looking for a motion to accept the amendment to the bylaws. Athena, again, from the gallery, thank you. Second on the motion, Patty. Okay, we'll do a count on this vote, so when you vote, please raise your hand so that we can count. All in favor, please? Never mind, that motion carries. That's a majority. Okay, plugging along. On behalf of the other officers and trustees of the corporation, we'd like to thank the outgoing trustees and officers. Greg Ramos is completing a term as a member of the Board of Trustees. Alan Lentini will be stepping down from the remainder of his term, and Lynn Champlain will be stepping down as the clerk of the corporation. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time of service. It is greatly appreciated. Moving then along to nominations. For the Board of Trustees, there are 4 openings currently on the Board of Trustees. 2 because, we had a 1-year term expire, a short term expire. Greg's term also expired, and Alan stepped down. I'm sorry, what is Dan's term has also ended, but Dan Nielsen has been renominated for a 2nd term. Zachary Klink has also been nominated. Mary Klink has been renominated, and I'm sorry, I have a blank line here for the... Oh, yes, right. Jay Griffin for Board of Trustees. For the officers of the corporation, Christine Duquette has been nominated to fill the slot of clerk of the corporation. Bob Mushin has been renominated for treasurer of the corporation, and myself, Jay Griffin, has been renominated for moderator of the corporation. Are there any nominations from the floor? I have a motion to close nominations. Second on the motion. Matthew? All in favor? All opposed? Okay, a motion to accept the trustees as presented. Athena, second. Betsy, all in favor? All opposed? Yes, there is nothing under the laws of Commonwealth of Massachusetts or in our bylaws preventing one person from holding all the jobs, in fact. Not that I am advocating such a, I'm sorry? Yeah, one person can in fact hold all the jobs, strangely enough. I'm sorry, Chris, now I've lost track of where I am. Accepting the officers? Did we have a motion and a second? Okay, all in favor to accept the officers? All opposed? Okay. Moving along to the nominating committee for the year of 2020. Per the bylaws, the nominating committee will consist of 3 members of the corporation. Also per bylaws, 1 member must be a trustee, and by custom, we ask that a member of the eldership and 1 at-large member of the corporation comprise the other 2 seats. So, can I please have a name of a trustee to serve on the nominating committee for 2020? Zachary Klink. From the eldership? Dave? And 1 member of the corporation who is not an elder or a trustee? Patty. Okay, do we have a motion to accept the nominating committee for 2020? Nope. 1 elder, 1 trustee, and 1 at-large member of the corporation. Sorry, so a motion to accept the nominating committee. Bob, second. Dan, all in favor? All opposed? Okay. Is there any new business to discuss that was not part of the agenda? Any new business to be brought forth? Okay, everyone's favorite motion. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Matthew, second. Patty, all in favor? All opposed? Okay, and with that, this meeting is closed. Dave, would you mind closing us in a word of prayer?
Father, we are so thankful that we can come together in your name. We can be the body here at Bethany Gospel Chapel that communicates to those around us who you are. God, we want to continue what our forefathers have established, but even greater what you have established here, that we would be able to be a shining light in this community for the world as well. And so thank you for what we've communicated tonight, for the work that's being done and the work that's going to be done this next year. Thank you for all those that have participated and given of themselves in various ways to make this place happen. Thank you, God, for the love that is shared, for the family that we are, and for the work that has been done and yet to be done. In your name, Lord Jesus.
Amen. You are dismissed.